Bonjour, mes amis et mes collègues. Excusez-moi parce que je ne parle pas anglais. Ma interprète parlerait vous. Merci encore. Et voilà.
Excellencies, distinguished participants and guests, dear colleagues, judges. It is an exceptional honor to be able to take part in the 16th International Conference of Supreme Court Presidents. It is a particular pleasure that for the second time I'm at this impressive educational institution. Let me thank you for the invitation and express my hope that my thoughts will contribute to the deliberations on the topic of international relations, peace, and respect of international law. I'm a politician and a lawyer and hope to contribute to your discussions. I shall begin by stating that the situation in the world has deteriorated in the past years and gives reason for concern. To the same measure of deterioration in the international arena, the trend of disrespect for international law is on the rise. These two things result in the growing threat to peace in the world. We see a new Cold War flaring up. It is not a mere phase. It is reality, especially in Europe, and a reality we should not turn a blind eye to. At the same time, and not only in the past years, but in the last few years, we saw veritable crusades happening under the disguise of struggle against dictatorship and for the introduction of the democracy. To tell the truth, several authoritarian regimes were brought down with assistance from the side. It is also true, however, that this lastingly destabilized several states in the world's troubled spots. It is true that external interventions, which, it was claimed, helped establish democracy, actually directly encouraged the birth of a monster known under the name of ISIS. Although it has nothing to do with Islam. It is a terrorist organization which uses brutal force to introduce its order in the regions for the time being of Iraq and Syria. But those infatuated and bloodthirsty followers are active in the North Africa as well. A citizen of the country, I was at the hand for 10 years, spared their victims recently. It is undeniable true that the policy of developed countries towards a large part of Africa and Asia, the policy which some call neocolonialism, using quite sound argument, has led to the impoverishment of millions, who together with the ones fleeing wars, wagged in order to allegedly promote democracy, came in thousands to knock at Europe's doors, seeking refugee and secure existence. Thousands of them, including children, end their lives in the waters of the Mediterranean in a desperate attempt to get to the shores of Europe. I think that we need to clearly put in question the legitimacy of armed interventions that bring down governments in other countries. According to me, it should be said clearly that nobody has the right to declare the president or government in another country illegitimate and declare open session on them. It bears no relation to international law whatsoever. It is undeniable right of every nation to organize its life, and it sees best, and it goes without saying that a specific internal order must not, and I repeat, must not put in question the fundamental values and achievements of the development of civilization. These are equally for all people, tolerance of others, and those who are different, human rights, minority rights, and other rights we are all aware of. It is important that nobody has the right of imposing on others, under any pretext, an order he considers good, because it functions in his part. What is good for my neighbor should not necessarily be good for me. Oftentimes it is not. We know this from everyday life, but in international affairs that are in question, this wisdom is often disregarded. At this conference last year, we were focusing on the new world law on the rights of children. It is still a topical issue. In the context of world I'm talking about, the suffering of children in wars, that are raging and the forces that stand behind these wars and take part in them make me repeat something I uttered here a year ago. The world law on the rights of children must be an efficient barrier for any fundamentalism, because fundamentalism is a force inevitably pulling backwards. Fundamentalism will not open the doors to the future, but often opens the gate of hell for those who follow it, and for those who fall its victims. If we want to ensure a future for our children, we have to defend them from any fundamentalism, religious, national, or of any other kind, no matter what its packaging might be. I have already mentioned that international law today is, to a great extent, becoming a victim of ruthless policy, of the extension of interest zones and of power exercising, directly and indirectly, in an ever larger part of the world. Unipolar forces cannot come to terms with the fact that the modern world is, and that it should be, multipolar. Euro-Atlantic integrations designed and established with praiseworthy goals, even ideas, threaten to turn into recalculating structures in the service of a single policy, which, it is becoming more clear by the day, is not the policy of peace. This is why it is necessary to mobilize all over the world the forces which are in favor of peace, of stability, and strict observance of international law. That is why it is unavoidable to reaffirm the United Nations, which has been pushed to the margins, avoided, and neglected. The coming forces, the BRIC countries, India among them, could play a decisive role in that. I shall add, in view of threats in the international relations, the possibility and the need of revitalizing the non-aligned movement could be recognized. India and Yugoslavia, which Croatia was then a part of, were among its founders. We must go back to some values we thought we had irrevocably embraced and adopted, since we now see we had not. When I say that, I first of all have in mind the full equality of subjects of international relations, then the principle of non-interference in the internal affairs of others, followed by the strict observance of the UN declarations, like the one on human rights and rights of children. And within that context, we should make a radical turn in the way we treat the UN. The World Organization should not be reduced to a debate club, with its decisions being taken into account only when they suit some and only the ones that do. Finally, when I speak of values and institutes we should return to, I then speak of peaceful conflict resolution through negotiations and not with armed force. In that context, arbitration should be reaffirmed as a well-proved method of conflict resolution, in case parties in conflict cannot, for any reason, reach a solution on their own. I should also add that my country, Croatia, has had an unpleasant experience with arbitration. With the disintegration of the Yugoslav Federation, border issues between the newly emerged states remained open because the borders between the federal units were only administrative. We were, thus, forced to seek a solution of open border issues at sea with the neighboring state of Slovenia in arbitration. The model was proposed by the European Commission. We accepted it, and it was recently proven that the other side tried to influence on the arbiter's decision in an unlawful way, and that it slipped in documents into the procedure subsequently. For those reasons, Croatia withdrew from the arbitration, recognizing it contaminated. I bring this example to your attention, not in order to put in question the institute of arbitration, but to emphasize the need of its protection from abuse which can compromise it. I have no doubt that this audience understands what I'm talking about very well. Let me try to sum up. We meet at a dangerous time, a time which requires a thorough consideration of how to proceed. which requires that the practice of violation of international law, which threatens to become dominant, gets abandoned. We should get back on course of peaceful conflict resolution and equality in the international relations. These are big tasks and big requirements, but we ought to do at least aspire to them. We owe that to the ones who are coming after us, including thousands of students of this impressive school, which is hosting this event. We should be reminded that millions lost their lives in World War II, hoping and believing that there will never be a war again. We let them down and are on the way to letting them down completely. There is still a chance to remedy this.
Abdulaziz Bouteflika, the President of the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. معالي وزير الدولة للشؤون الخارجية السيد كيجاي عمار سينغ، سعادة الدكتور جاك ديس غاندي، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات الفضليات، السادة الأفاضل، إنه لشرف عظيم أن أكون بينكم اليوم بلكناو، هذه المدينة الجامعية، بامتياز لحضور مراسم افتتاح الطبعة 16 لمؤتمر رؤساء المحاكم العليا الملتئم هذه السنة تحت شعار توحيد العالم من أجل الأطفال عبر قوانين دولة نافذة وحكمة ناجعة.
Excellency Minister Vijay Kumar Singh, Minister of State for External Affairs, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be at Lucknow, the well-known city by the great reputation of its school and universities, for the opening of 16th International Conference of Chief Justices, organized and entitled for this session, Uniting the World for Children through Binding International Laws and Effective Global Governance.
بداية اسمحوا لي أن أتقدم باسم فخامة السيد عبد العزيز بوتفليقة رئيس الجمهورية الجزائرية الديمقراطية الشعبية بالجزيل الشكر لمدرسة سيتي مونتسيوري بلاكاون على دعوتها الكريمة وتنظيمها لهذا اللقاء وعلى العمل الذي أنجزته منذ إنشائها في سبيل ترقية ثقافة السلم عبر العالم.
On behalf of His Excellency Abdulaziz Bouteflika, President of Algeria, please allow me to first to thank City Montessori School of Lucknow for this cordial invitation and congratulate it for organizing today's meeting and for the work that it has been accomplished since its creation in promoting the culture.
سعادة الدكتور جاك ديس غاندي على ما يكرسه منذ سنوات من جهد ووقت ثمين لهذه المدرسة التي جعل منها مدرسة معترفا ومشهودا لها بنظرتها المتميزة إلى التربية ومستواها التعليمي الممتاز، خاصة في نهجها المستوحى من فلسفة الزعيم غاندي القائمة على قيم التسامح والسلام.
I also thank its founder, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, who
Since the translation has been already provided and it is being shown on the screen, with your permission, sir, the friends can read it as you speak, and your translator can sit and help with the manner in which the text is being shown on the screen. In this manner, we'll be able to save time. Okay? So please come this side. Is that okay, sir?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
إن الأوسمة التي وشح بها في هذا الخصوص لا سيما وسام التربية من السلم الممنوح له من منظمة الأمم المتحدة للتربية والعلوم والثقافة اليونسكو في عام 2008 لدليل على ذلك. كما أشكر جميع من ساهم في تنظيم هذا اللقاء على حسن الاستقبال وكرم الوفادة، وكل الحضور من السيدات الفضليات والسادة الأفاضل الوافدين لهذا المؤتمر من مختلف أنحاء العالم ليتقاسموا خبراتهم بشأن ترقية ثقافة السلم لفائدة الأجيال القادمة بل ولفائدة البشرية جمعاء. السيدات الفضليات السادة الأفاضل، إن انتصار العالم الحر على النازية والفاشية في الحرب العالمية الثانية قد أسفر عن إنشاء منظمة الأمم المتحدة التي كان غرضها المحافظة على السلم والأمن الدوليين اللذين لا يمكن بدونهما تحقيق أي تطور اجتماعي أو تنمية اقتصادية أو رفاهية شعوب المعمورة. لكن للأسف الشديد إن ما نسجله ونلاحظه اليوم هو أن قيم السلم والرفاهية المشتركة التي حملها ورسخها رجال عظماء بعد الحرب العالمية الثانية قد بدأ بريقها يتخافت بفعل التغيرات التي يشهدها العالم في العلاقات الدولية السياسية والاقتصادية والثقافية والاجتماعية، وانتشار التطرف والحروب والابتعاد عن ثقافة السلم والأمن الدوليين التي كانت أفرزتها الحرب العالمية الثانية. إن المجموعة الدولية والمجتمعات المدنية عبر سائر دول العالم مسؤولة اليوم على إعادة بعث تلك القيم وغرس بذورها ونقلها إلى الأجيال القادمة حتى تتجنبها بل حتى تجنبها المعاناة المريرة التي عاشها أسلافها بل وتعيشها بعض الشعوب مع الأسف الشديد إلى اليوم نتيجة عدم احترام معايير التوازنات الاقتصادية والسياسية في العالم التي من شأنها المحافظة على الاستقرار والسلم الدوليين من جهة وضمان التنمية والرفاهية لجميع الشعوب المعمورة من جهة أخرى. إن رفاهية الشعوب تتجسد في دولة القانون من خلال تمتع المواطنين بحرياتهم وحقوقهم الأساسية، وكذلك باحترام المساواة في السيادة بين جميع الدول، والتزام جميع الأمم بالقانون الدولي الذي يتجلى سموه من خلال إعلان ميثاق الأمم المتحدة. يجب أن يبقى في صلب اهتمام المجتمع الدولي الذي يقع على عاتقه السهر على تطبيقه كاملا وبصفة عادلة. سيدات الفضليات السادة الأفاضل، إن الجزائر حرصا منها على بناء مستقبلها واتقاء نفسها الاضطرابات قد سعت دائما في سبيل وحدة جميع أبناء شعبها والبحث في بوتقة قيمهم الأصيلة التي تحل بها أسلافهم من تسامح وعفو وتضامن لتكون حافزا يزيد من قوة ترابطهم وتعاضدهم داخل المجتمع. واسمحوا لي في هذا الصدد أن أذكر بكل أسف بأن الجزائر شهدت خلال تسعينيات القرن الماضي حالة عدم استقرار داخلي نتيجة حملة تخريب قادتها مجموعات متطرفة ضد الجمهورية وجميع مؤسساتها ورموزها، فكانت موجة عنف إرهابية استهدفت جميع فئات الشعب. وفي سياق هذا العنف الإرهابي المتطرف عرفت الجزائر وفي ظل تجاهل الكثير من شركائها أسوأ تجربة في تاريخ استقلالها الفتي، فقد استنفذت جميع إمكاناتها ووسائل مؤسساتها وعبأت جميع أبنائها وبناتها المخلصين لتضع حدا لتلك النزوات الرامية إلى زعزعة استقرار الدولة. فتلقت في حربها ضد الإرهاب درسا ثمينا، وهو الانتصار على التطرف العنيف لا يكفي وحده في دحر الإرهاب والقضاء عليه طالما لم يتحل المشاكل الاقتصادية والاجتماعية التي يتغذى منها الإرهاب غالبا، لا سيما وسط فئات الشعب الأكثر هشاشة ومنها فئة الشباب. لهذا بمجرد الانتصار على الإرهاب شرعت الجزائر في تطبيق استراتيجيتها الهادفة إلى اجتثاث الفرد والمجتمع من براثين التلاعبات الإيديولوجية بتعزيزها الديمقراطية التشاركية والعدالة الاجتماعية وتنمية قدرات الشباب في تحمل المسؤولية وتدعيم مرجعيتهم العقائدية بما تزخر به من قيم ومثل ومبادئ إنسانية مشتركة من تقديس للعمل الشريف وتبجيل للصفح والتسامح والتضامن والتآخي بين جميع بني الإنسان، مركزة في ذلك خاصة على المدرسة ورسالتها الأزلية في تكوين مواطن صالح حر ومسؤول. وقد كانت هذه الاستراتيجية بمبادرة من فخامة رئيس الجمهورية السيد عبد العزيز بوتفليقة الذي جاء بسياسة السلم والمصالحة الوطنية، فأحدث بتطبيقها نقلة ذات أبعاد حضارية حملت في طياتها قيم الرحمة والصفح والتسامح التي أعادت للجزائر أمنها واستقرارها، وانطلقت بها في مسار تنمية وطنية شاملة حققت العديد من الإنجازات الضخمة في جميع المجالات السياسية والاقتصادية والاجتماعية نحو جعل الجزائر في مستوى تطلعات أجيالها الصاعدة والتحديات التي يعرفها العالم اليوم. ولا شك في أن السلم والاستقرار عامل أساسي وحاسم في ترقية التنمية لفائدة الأجيال الصاعدة والقادمة، فالاستقرار السياسي في رأينا هو مفتاح التطور والتنمية المستدامة، وهذا ما عبر عنه الشعب الجزائري من خلال رفضه للعنف والتطرف وقناعته الراسخة بأنه لا سبيل لتحقيق التنمية السياسية والاقتصادية والاجتماعية ضمانا للمستقبل ومستقبل أجيال صاعدة دون عودة للسلم والأمن. سيدات الفضليات السادة الأفاضل، إن تنظيم مدرسة مونتيسوري لهذا اللقاء حول موضوع توحيد العالم من أجل الأطفال يستدعي منا استحضار الفكرة النيرة في مجال الأمن والسلم للسيدة العظيمة ماريا مونتيسوري التي تحمل هذه المدرسة اسمها بكل فخر واعتزاز. فلقد استطاعت هذه المرأة الفذة أن تميز عصرها بالدعوة إلى إسناد مهمة نشر السلام للأجيال الجديدة باعتبارها الأجيال التي ستقود عالم الغد، مستندا في ذلك إلى نظرتها التي تلخصها وتختزلها في مقولتها الخالدة: إن إرساء السلم الدائم هو من عمل التربية، ولا يسع السياسة سوى تجنب الحروب. وهي نظرة جديرة بالوقوف عندها والتقصي فيما تكنه من معاني وحلول لصنع أنجع وأقوى سلاح يكفل البشرية مكافحة النزاعات وترقية السلم، ألا وهو سلاح التربية. وتلك رسالة مؤسستكم ذائعة الصوت، والتي تتطابق ورسالة مؤسستنا التعليمية وسياسة تربيتنا الوطنية التي نعمل على تنشئة الأجيال الصاعدة على المثل والقيم الوطنية والإنسانية المشتركة والالتزام باحترام الآخر وقواعد المحافظة على البيئة وقدرتها الطبيعية. أقول المحافظة على البيئة لأن الأضرار الملحقة بها بشكل مستمر وشامل باتت تشكل خطراً على الحياة البشرية، ولا شك في أن هذه الأضرار للأسف سببها الإنسان فرداً كان أو دولة بتصرفاته الأنانية واللامسؤولة وغلوه في استعمال واستغلال المقدرات الطبيعية لدرجة التبديد الذي طال الوسط الطبيعي والتنوع البيولوجي وصحة الإنسان، أي كل مصادر ومنابع الحياة على وجه الأرض. إن كوكبنا الأخضر في خطر، وليس هذا الخطر إيكولوجيا فقط، فالتدهور البيئي لا يهدد ديمومة الحياة واستمرار العيش فحسب، بل يهدد الأمن والسلم أيضا، لأن ندرة الموارد الطبيعية وقلة مصادر الحياة مجلبة للحروب والنزاعات والاضطرابات الداخلية، وباعث على تفاقمها وازديادها عنفا وضراوة يوما بعد يوم. وعلى المجتمع الدولي والمجتمعات المدنية وسائر الدول وشعوب العالم أن تدرك خطورة الأضرار بالبيئة، وأن تتخذ على وجه الاستعجال الإجراءات التي تفرض نفسها بإعداد السياسات والممارسات التي تتناسب مع هذه الوضعية، وتسير بالعالم في عكس ما هو فيه من اتجاه، وهو بدءا من تربية أبنائنا وتلقينهم كيف يحافظون على كوكبهم الذي هو أغلى ما يملكون، تجنبا للكوارث والاضطرابات والنزاعات والحروب، وضمانا للأمن والسلم الدوليين. إنما يجتاح عالم اليوم من إرهاب دولي وإجرام عابر للحدود وتهريب ومتاجرة بالأسلحة والمخدرات وبالنساء وبالأطفال وأعضائهم البشرية وغيرها من مظاهر العنف والآفات الاجتماعية المقيتة. سببه هذه الحروب والفتن وما ترزخ تحته العديد من شعوب العالم من فقر وجهل وظروف اجتماعية مزرية يعيشها الشباب. إن أطفال اليوم هم رجال الغد، والحكامة الفعالة تقتضي تمكينهم من ظروف حياة تكفل لهم الحماية والعيش الكريم وتطوير ملكاتهم وإعدادهم لضمان مستقبلهم ومستقبل أجيالهم المتعاقبة من خلال وضع قواعد وآليات وطنية ودولية توفر لهم الحماية وتقيهم من الانحراف والعنف والاستغلال وسوء المعاملة. إن ما عشناه من تجارب مريرة يجعلنا ننضم ونتحد بقوة لمواجهة مختلف ما يتهدد الإنسانية من مخاطر وأضرار، خاصة الفقر والجهل والخلافات السياسية المتشعبة والتطرف الديني والتمييز واللامساواة، لا سيما في العلاقات شمال جنوب التي يغلب عليها عدم الإنصاف وعدم العدل. إن مأساة المهاجرين التي يشهدها العالم اليوم لهي أحد إفرازات اختلالات التوازنات على مستوى المنظومتين العالميتين الاقتصادية والمالية من جهة، والتجاذبات الدولية في ظل علاقات دولية أخلت بالتوازن في بعض الأحيان، بذلك التوازن الضروري للحفاظ على الاستقرار والأمن الدوليين من جهة ثانية. سيدات الفضليات، السادة الأفاضل، إن بلدي لمتمسك بمبادئه ومثله وقيمه، سيبقى ملتزما وفاعلا ضمن المجتمع الدولي على نشر السلام والاستقرار الدوليين ودعمه المطلق للشرعية الدولية في حل جميع القضايا العادلة، وتعاونه مع كل شعوب ودول العالم من أجل أن يعم السلام كافة أرجاء المعمورة، وتنعم الأجيال الجديدة بحياة أفضل ومستقبل آمن. وختاما، أدعو نفسي وكافة السيدات والسادة الحضور إلى تبنينا في هذا المؤتمر ما جاء في ميثاق اليونسكو لسنة 1945 من أنه طالما الحروب تولد في أذهان البشر فمن الأذهان نفسها نرفع حصون السلام، متمنيا للمؤتمر كل النجاح والتوفيق في إشاعته ثقافة السلام التي ستبقى وحدها أمام مختلف بؤر التوتر في عالم اليوم، من تولد السلام للأجيال الصاعدة وضمان عالم راسخ وآمن لأكثر من 2 في العالم ومليوني طفل والأجيال في هذا العالم، وشكرا جزيلا على كرم الأصغاء.
On behalf of His Excellency, the President of Algeria, our dear Minister would like to present a memento to you.
I want to thank His Excellency the President of Algeria, who has been very kind in sending this little gift for me, and I am thankful to the Minister of Law and Justice of Algeria, who has brought this gift from the President of Algeria. Thank you very much.
I think you all would agree with me that really this was such a powerful speech. The interlinkages, the connections between the various dimensions that affect the establishment of peace. Thank you so much. I wish I could understand Arabic and appreciate the speech even more. It reminded me of something, of an appeal that our children made yesterday when they said that we are the last generation that can save this planet, and the first generation that can end poverty in all its forms. The beautiful manner in which this country addressed the whole issue of terrorism and the extremist behavior, the constructive resilience with which they started the work, and the fact that they recognize that in order to be able to address the issue, you have to immediately work with the youth of your society to be able to bring about some change. And the beautiful words of Maria Montessori, which was shared in this talk, that it is in the educational institutions, through them you can establish peace. The countries of the world can end war. But as we all know, friends, peace is much more than the end of war. Indeed, we are so fortunate the City Montessori School has taken it so much upon itself to ensure that the children not only receive education in an intellectual manner, but also receive education to become truly citizens of the world. Thank you once again, and please also convey our sincere thanks and greetings to His Excellency, the President of Algeria. It's now my honor to call on stage the Honorable Justice A.M. Ahmadi, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of India. Justice Ahmadi. Would you please join me in welcoming Justice Ahmadi?
Good afternoon. My colleagues from the judicial field, Your Excellencies, Chief Justices and judges from abroad, legislators, journalists, ladies and gentlemen, students of the City Montessori School, teachers, and of course Mr. Jagdish Gandhi. I have always marveled how he can bring about a gathering of such a large judicial faculty in this historical town of Lucknow. It gives me great pleasure to be in your midst this afternoon and to share a few thoughts with you. Thank you. Aware as I am in this hall today are assembled people of great learning, people who have occupied high positions in their respective countries, and also legislators, ministers, and students of this school. Unfortunately, so far as I am concerned, I have not had a strong association with any school because I had to change schools practically every year up to my matriculation, and thereafter also colleges post-matriculation. Therefore, that bondage which many of you must have had with your old school is not there. I am trying to build that bondage by attending to Mr. Gandhi's endeavors under Article 51 of the Constitution, which manifests an anxiety and concern of India for international peace and security. In keeping with that concept, Mr. Gandhi has been able to gather here this large audience of learned people to raise the voice of the voiceless, who have suffered not because of anything that they did, but because others did to them. 2 world wars resulted in large number of children and youngsters dying during the wars. And at the end of every war, at the end of the First World War, we thought that the time of wars has ended. But then we had the Second World War, in which 2 powerful bombs were thrown on the huge cities in Japan, which we cannot ever forget. Large body of young children died during those bombings. In a manner, the international community has been guilty of neglecting the welfare of children across the globe who suffer the most in any skirmish or war. Our worst crime is in abandoning the children who suffer on account of our faults and neglect. The needs of the child at the fountain of life cannot wait. They must be addressed without loss of time. Our needs can wait. There is no tomorrow for the child. It is today, and it is right now. When a child is born, all the family members, relations, neighbors and friends rejoice. God has cast a duty and obligation on the parents of the child to ensure the best interests of the child. Parents have to secure the future of the child. That is a duty cast on them by the Almighty, and we have largely failed in the discharge of that duty, as a result of which children go astray. For want of proper education and educational facilities for the children. When children go astray, we start calling them street urchins. But what is the name you can assign to those who neglected them and did not perform their duty towards the children? The children of no generation in the history of humanity have had to face so many swift changes caused by 2 world wars. The United Nations Convention defines a child as a person below the age of 18 years. And today, If we take stock of the world population, almost around 50% of the population comprise of youngsters and infant children. These rapid changes have profoundly affected the living conditions of children. We need to take care of the rising population of children who, with the passage of time, will become full participants affecting the world of tomorrow. How best can we prepare them to assume responsibilities as full participants? The task appears to be daunting, more so because of the prevailing inequities and conflicts which the younger generation has to face. Their plight as victims of abuse, violence, exploitation in their societies is ever on the increase. They are often engaged in hazardous works, in factories, and are denied good education and family life. Many turn into, as I said, street urchins, thereby excluded from the family life and shunned out from society. They are denied education and thereby a better future. Who should be held responsible for their degrading future? Can there be a single universally acceptable solution to the victimization of children? This is the challenge we face. Daunting, no doubt. Perhaps mass education, compulsory primary education to children between the ages of 6 and 14, which Government of India has introduced, may help, since empowerment can come only through education, and unless schools are set up in the vicinity of residential clusters, the objective may not be achieved. Access to justice is the right of every child. The benefits of education are substantial to society. It will cut down cheap child labor and reduce adult unemployment. The rights of the children must be respected. The recent move to reduce the age from 18 to 16 because of criminal incidents can only be branded as an unfortunate knee-jerk. India has a very well-made constitution with a charter of freedoms and certain directives given to the government in power. The Constitution of India provided and has still provides for free and compulsory education to children between the age of 6 and 14. Initially, the constitution makers gave the government 10 years' time to implement the said provision. Even though 40 years passed by, no government bothered to even look into that direction until the court had to intervene, and the court had to enforce that provision. Today it has become a reality. I remember that few years back, UNESCO had appointed a committee with myself and a very eminent socialist judge, Justice I forget the name the moment I come to it, I'll tell you. Very eminent judge. We provided a report for the right of the child. That report was not acted upon. It lay in cold storage for a long time, until again the court intervened and passed orders for implementing the provisions of the Constitution. The right to the child for free and compulsory education between the years of 6 and 14, as well as for a child below the age of 6 years. Now this, of course, reads well on the paper on which it is written, but the problem is very often of implementing those provisions. The constitution makers had realized the difficulty of financing the provision and implementing it. And it is for that reason that the constitution makers said you have to implement it within 10 years. 10 years passed, 20 passed, without amending the constitution, 30 years, 40 years passed, but nothing had happened. It was then that the Supreme Court intervened. And as a result of its intervention, the government became aware of their obligation to implement that provision in the Constitution. See, there is an expression which is used in the Constitution in Chapter 4, which says, the state shall endeavor. State shall endeavor. And what does it mean? Endeavor means what? Make an effort also, not make an effort also. So, it falls on the court then to ensure the implementation of the constitutional provisions. As you may recall, the 1989 convention, UN convention, spoke about well-being and opportunities for children to develop on sound principles. The situation has, over a period of time, improved, but not fully implemented. Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world with various diversities. People around the world live together, separated by black lines on the map only. Over a period of time, the black light line has become a faint line. Strict borders are now slowly and gradually ceasing to be relevant. As it is said, the world is a global village. It is necessary to bear in mind that we live in a global village. If one house catches fire, others cannot be complacent, because that fire will start engulfing the next house and the next house. And that is where the international community has to give a serious thought as to how to avoid skirmishes. And human nature, I don't know, as I see things, I feel increasingly that the human nature is I got a slip. I will, Madam, give me a couple of minutes, I'll wind up. Human nature is such that it just cannot live in peace with everyone around it. They find out excuses for quarrels. And even when the Honorable Minister was speaking, I was quite happy to hear some words coming from him. And I do hope that we must first take note of the fact to bring about peace in your own country, and then try to expand it to other countries. If you fail to be able to bring about peace in your own country, how do you expect others to fall in line? Therefore, today the biggest problem is that we fight on grounds of religion, casteism, etc. India, right from the beginning, has been a country with graded inequalities. Graded inequality because of the caste system in India. So and so is a high caste, so and so is low caste. Every now and then you read in the newspaper, a low caste boy, just yesterday I read, a low caste boy, while the food was being served, went and picked up a plate for himself. He picked up that plate which was not meant for the low caste, and he was beaten up. We find that on caste and religion basis there are so many crimes that take place in society, and if we cannot control them, the nation is likely to suffer. So, young boys, remember two things. take out the seed of fear from you, if you have one. And the second is, do not allow superstition to govern your thinking. These two things must be out from your systems. And once that is so, you will be able to face the world much strongly. Mr. Gandhi, I thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to be in the midst of this gathering. And I do hope that your endeavors bear fruits.
My apologies, Justice Ahmadi. Sometimes in a conference like this, we need to do that in order to ensure that all the respected speakers get the opportunity to address the gathering. It is very interesting that I believe last year one of the Chief Justices spoke of the importance of people of faith, religious leadership to be invited in a gathering of this nature when we are talking about the establishment of international peace. In the course of the morning, the speakers have all the time addressed this issue and mentioned that there has been a rise in fundamentalism, different kinds, but including religious fundamentalism. Justice Ahmadi just now also mentioned that there has been a lot of war and bloodshed in the name of religion. And at the same time, some of the distinguished speakers mentioned that religion has a tremendous power and force to motivate collective action, that it is a great force to civilize human character. I wanted to share with you that in a gathering of the world religious leaders, which was convened just before the United Nations General Assembly session in September 2015 for the passage of the Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, the world leaders got together and came up with a statement called Ending Extreme Poverty, a Moral and a Spiritual Imperative. And in that statement, they have said, our shared convictions call us to empower and uplift, not denigrate those living in poverty, so that they can become agents of their own transformation. We must abandon a politics that too often marginalizes their voices, blames them for their condition, and exacerbates extremes of inequality. Now is the time to turn fatigue into renewed commitment, indifference into compassion, cynicism into hope, and impotence into a greater sense of agency, that we can and will end extreme poverty by 2030. Without sustainable development, there can be no peace. And there can be no peace without sustainable development. I now would like to call on stage Honorable Mr. Abhigyan Prakash, Senior Executive Editor of NDTV.
ये माला पहनते ही इंसान नेता जैसा महसूस करता है. So I don't want to feel like a politician. Sorry. ये लीजिए सर. ये मंत्री महोदय को पहना दीजिएगा. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I'd like to thank so much Jagdish Gandhi ji here for inviting me. I normally get slightly emotional about being in this city because a lot of people don't know that I actually grew up in this city. So this is my city, Lucknow. Hello, Lucknow. Lovely to be here. I can't hear. There has to be a higher degree of applause on this. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. It really feels Thank you, Jagdish. It really feels very nice. बड़ी मन में खुशी होती है जब भी काम की वजह से थोड़ा कम वक्त मिलता है यहाँ आने का. But such a wonderful, learned set of people. I really don't know how competent I am to speak on it, but I was told about the issue of gender equality and the role of media. Now, with so many international delegates here, obviously I must point out, and there should be no hesitation in admitting it, that over the years, media surely has lost credibility. The Indian media at large has to reinvent and look within more than anything else. Is it actually raising the right issues? So that is one of the things under which the issue of gender equality comes in very, very strongly. I was just listening to Justice Ahmadi. I've had, over the years, as I've seen judgments and analyzed them on my programs or my writings, deepest admiration and regard for the Supreme Court of India. Trust me, many of the policies and decisions of various government would have remained the way they were and actually not beneficial in a very strong democracy like India to the people of India if the Supreme Court of India had not intervened. And one such big example has been a very tragic incident in the winters of Delhi a few years ago of a girl being raped, and eventually the parliament discussing it, and eventually a change in law being brought about. All of it, and many laws primarily related to corruption, the judiciary at various levels, although there's been a counter debate to it as well. And let me make that clear to you. But judiciary has played a very important role in this. The point that I'm trying to make here is I still travel far and wide of the country. I try to, despite my commitment, go to various parts of rural India, the villages of India. There are two most startling things that come across. Two, and I'll keep it very short to explain it to you, so all of you understand that whichever part of the country you are connected to, whichever way you are connected to, you convey the message. And the word that is lacking when you discuss gender equality, the word that is lacking in the mindset is respect. I'm sorry to say, sometimes it almost feels as if, such issues like gender equality, they all become like a very highbrow, fashionable seminar type of discussion. That is a huge problem, and it's a real problem. The actual respect that should be given on the ground is not there. Laws beyond a point will make things happen, will be the instrument for things to happen. But ultimately, it is the way you change your mind, particularly all the youngsters sitting there. It is the way you evolve that respect in your mind that will actually change anything. We're all, the other day I said this in my program also, that we're all living now in a new generation. I'm told the numbers are in millions of this Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. How do you react to these issues? On that is your way of communication. Even if it is a lesser percentage of this country, unlike a higher percentage of rural India, even if it is lesser. But the importance is, how are you all youngsters reacting to it? How much of you go back and read the laws that are put on various websites? One thing General Singh is here, and I must say that the present government, and I've pointed it out, is also fairly transparent in putting across a lot of material available to you to read and understand. How much of you are actually spending time doing that? And then understanding. Everybody spoke, I'm not going to repeat, that education at various levels is the key. And you people, you wonderful youngsters, are of the generation who can run lives on a smartphone. Right? Isn't it true? Then use that instrument to gain information about the rights, about the laws that are changing for you, about the policies that are changing for you, about the various means that are meant for you, and circulate that. I don't have a problem. I'm not going to be old school and say, don't share your jokes and don't share your WhatsApp. No problem. You're a WhatsApp generation. But also share information. Tell somebody, when you talk of gender inequality, tell somebody that if something happens wrong with you tomorrow, this is the way you react to it. Or this is the provision that the law gives you. This is the way governments are supposed to treat you. Tell them about their rights. Until unless you do that, whatever you do, whatever you may discuss, whatever you may finally achieve and arrive at, will not matter. That is my biggest problem for years and years, and I'm seeing it traveling across India, mainly to rural India. And you ask women there, the biggest problem in this country right now is, and this is 2015 India, I'm not even going to get into the caste politics and the electoral politics. The biggest problem is they simply don't know their rights. They simply don't know what they can do, what they should do. And therefore they fall trapped in almost like a permanent feudalistic society-based system which is refusing to change. So when you're there with information, my only appeal is be that agent of change. Tell that young girl, I'm not going to get into details, but I can tell you hundreds of examples I've seen where state governments will announce these mega schemes, spend lakhs of rupees on propagating it, advertising it, education for girls at this level, education for girls at that level. Nobody even gets to know. The government schools are in a pathetic condition, we all know, in rural parts of India. Then what is happening? Nobody even tells them. I asked them a couple of times, I said, doesn't your teacher come and tell you? This is a glorious education center here. Your teachers impart knowledge to you, and then you gain from that knowledge and impart it to others. So when we talk about this gender equality, that is something which is most important. The courts are doing right. The governments are listening to you. And trust me, it's not that, as a lot of things, it will always be debated. Laws should be debated before they are formulated. But governments are listening to you more than ever. And I'm making this point very clearly. They're forced to listen to you more than ever. But then you listen to the decisions and pass it on to people who feel, who need it. Maybe someone just next to you. You have absolutely no idea. I think the biggest way of bringing in equality, and media obviously has to improve itself in a very big way and bring on as much as possible, at least I try and do it in my way, the right debate. Not the noisy debate, not the tamasha debate, but the right debate. So you impart that information which will make the biggest difference. And that is one thing I really, because I've heard so much about Sir's Institute for years when I grew up in this city, and I really want to, because I know you are a set of bright, privileged students. So just do a WhatsApp to somebody and find out what are the laws today saying, what are the opportunities of education saying, what are your government schemes, how well can you help somebody study better. That's it. 80 to 85% of this equality. And what is media? Any way of communication is media. Today, the media's power is directly more with you than with people like us, which is to communicate on platform which don't allow you, until unless of course there is a sense of sensitivity and negativism, to create hindrances. Use that to tell across. Use that to educate. Use that to understand who needs it more than you do. Your teachers are already telling you, make a little effort here and there, slight effort here and there, and impart it to others. Give it to others. And then, as Justice Ahmedi talked about the Supreme Court interventions in various matters, and then see what the government brings in about as changes for all of you. How it actually percolates and gets down to the last man. Remember what Gandhiji said. It was very simple. If you read various writings of Gandhi, including biographies of Gandhi, I finished a couple of months back reading Walk to Freedom, Nelson Mandela's biography. And what is the one common factor? General Singh is sitting here. He'll also elaborate whenever he comes next to speak to you. He just spoke of the last person there. That is what seems so common about Nelson Mandela and Mahatma Gandhi. That's it, the last person there. And that is all you need to impart. With newer, faster, and more effective tools of communication today. That is my only request and appeal. And trust me, that will create greater sense of satisfaction plus equality to you, and you will feel then genuinely what phenomena of gender equality is, much needed to discuss it, debate it, but take it beyond seminars. I'm sorry, I'm being a little more realistic here, but take it beyond seminars. And it is as simple as the story from a Gandhi to a Mandela. Take it to the person right at the end. Try and achieve that. And you're all in a wonderful educational institution. Once again, my heartfelt thanks for Jagdish Gandhiji for letting me come into my city back to Lucknow. Thank you so much, all of you wonderful people. Make this world a happier place. Thank you so much, everyone. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका. Thank you.
Much, sir. You're indeed an orator. And I think that you really had our students and all dear friends who have gathered here clapping for you constantly. May I call upon you, please, again to express your gratitude? I remember very well the incidents of Nirbhaya and the fact that many of us who were working at that time in women organization, working for the cause of the equality of men and women, all geared together in gatherings, in seminars, in discussions, sending recommendations to the late Justice Verma Commission in order to ensure that the judiciary of India actually come together, hear the voice of the civil society, and come up with new laws. It was a great moment of excitement and celebration for all of us when the new laws were approved, were passed by the Law Commission, and that bill went into the Parliament and it became an act, the legal reforms that happened for the women and girls of this country. Let's give a hand in memory of Nirbhaya and in memory of all those friends who really have sacrificed so much in order to make that possible. Now, the one thing which I believe was very important, sir, and you highlighted it in your presentation, is that the imperative need for the media to look within, to try to see how much more it can contribute and how it can play more the role of a constructive tool that brings to mind and attention all the positive changes and elements that happen, and not to use itself as a tool for sensationalizing events. I'm just reminded of all the practice that we had with children, and when they had to pronounce such difficult words, I caught myself today. Thank you very much, sir, once again. I would like now to request Honorable Justice Graciela Dixon, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Justice of Panama and former President of the International Association of Women Judges, to address the gathering. Yes, please come. It's an honor to meet you, ma'am.
Your Honor, representatives, and the former heads of state, distinguished Chief Justices and judges invited to this conference and here present, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi, Mrs. Gandhi, respected and very distinguished guests, most admirable members of staff and students of the City Montessori School, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to thank you for having given me the opportunity to be here once again, almost 7 or 8 years later. This is my third attendance to the conference. My past attendance was in the year 2008. I am very, very happy to be here again because I have the opportunity to verify that we are moving forward. It's so interesting when one has, I would say, the opportunity to be there, disappear, and come back. I was demanded because I disappeared. Some of my colleagues said, "Where were you? You disappeared." And yes, I did. Reasons above my control. But at the same time, with a positive approach to this reality, I find that this allowed me a great, I would say, advantageous position of being able to look at the past, examine the present, compare, and foresee the future. Where are we today? In this 16th venue, we have been called upon to work on uniting the world for children through enforceable word law by designing an effective global governance. Now, theoretically speaking, this sounds pretty huge. It is a grandiose task, and one would ask, is it reasonable to think that children from a city by the name of Lucknow that are of a school by the name of City Montessori School in a country by the name of India can effectively undertake such majestic task? If we are romantic, we could say, oh, of course, yes. Among other reasons, because this is the largest school on earth by the number of students. Among other reasons, because it is led by a guy who happens to be very passionate, some may believe he's not totally in his mind. There might be signs to suggest that he is somewhat eccentric. But the truth is that he has been so consistently committed to this project that one would have to stop and review such thoughts when you think that this guy may not know exactly what he's doing. My experience, having been away for a couple of years now, is that he is extremely assertive. He has a vision, and he's convinced and has been able to convince many of us, hundreds of us, of the possibility of converting such vision into a reality in the present life. Having said this, the next step would be to question if there is a vision and there is a dream and there are people who have declared their commitment to such vision and dream. The following question would be, how feasible would this be? How possible it is to convert this dream into reality? I do my greatest effort to exercise answers. I have this strange habit of raising questions and answering them myself. It's not that I don't want people to answer them, especially if I'm talking with someone to whom I would address such question, but it's the tendency of trying to exercise solutions when one is facing problems. And a question for me is somewhat a problem. So the question of how possible would it be to have this dream converted into reality? And this leads to another question. How soon would this be? And another question. What would be required for it to happen? And I have tried to exercise simple answers to all three questions. Respecting or with respect to the time, how long? I would say not as long as one would have imagined 50 years ago. Why? Because today the power is not exclusively controlled. The power of communication is not exclusively in hands of a couple of people who happens to be in high positions and with the capacity to serve us with the information that they believe we need to know. With the revolution of communication and the development of the knownly social media today, information is in the hands of each and every person who has access to these social media and have the possibility or the capacity to transmit such information to any and everywhere on earth. This alone, this tool alone, makes it possible to see the changes occurring in a much shorter time. So this would be my answer to one of the questions. And this leads to another answer. Would it be possible for us to live to see it? I answer affirmatively as well. Why? Very simple. We don't have any time left. It's just a demand of necessity. We do not have the time to waste before we get engaged and produce the answers. We either do or die. And we have chosen to do. And that's why we're here. The third thing is, what or how are we going to produce these changes? And when I go back to the conference theme and I see that we are here, we have been called upon designing or working on creating a united world for the children of today, the children of tomorrow, and the children of day after tomorrow through designing or developing enforceable world law and structuring a global governance, then I say this is also possible. It is possible because we have already dared to think of this as a necessity. And it is possible because we have committed ourselves to such huge task. Are we the ones called upon to develop or to carry this team to reality? I would say partially, yes. But it's not going to be our task exclusively. We are committed to get other players on board. And if there's one important task that I believe we should close this conference with, and I may be excused for stepping stages, I do believe that it is that we have to come up with the conclusion that our task is to design the strategy by which we are out to get other stakeholders on board. It is not going to be possible for this dream to come to life if we resume it only to us as players. It has to expand to other spheres of our lives, worldwide speaking. We need to get those who are in capacity and position to make decisions to be aware that there are people on earth who have gotten together and gotten engaged in developing answers for the problems that we are facing. The structures we have has failed, but it's not enough to just diagnose the sickness. It is our duty to design the cure for such sickness. And it's not going to be by killing the sick, neither by elaborating artificial medication. It is going to be only effective or possible if we are capable to look at nature and learn from nature and apply one of the most powerful tools that nature has and with which nature has taught us. And this is, as I said in Delhi a couple of days ago, the power of love. If we are capable to love with such force and such strength, we will be able to come up with the effective designs, ideas, suggestions, formulas, strategies, tactics, etc., 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 to take our dream to reality. I have been allowed 10 minutes. I don't know how many of those 10 minutes I have used, but if I am exceeding, I apologize. But I do want to be given the opportunity to address in Spanish, which is my home language, especially considering the large attendance of Spanish-speaking delegates that are here. So I switch. Voy a intentar resumir de manera breve, por no abusar del tiempo que me ha sido concedido, las ideas centrales que he intentado presentar en la lengua de Shakespeare. En cuanto al propósito por el cual estamos aquí y sobre todo, cuál es la perspectiva que veo tiene este esfuerzo que se repite año tras año. Hemos sido convocados bajo un lema central: desarrollar o crear un mundo nuevo, unido para los niños a través del diseño de una ley que sea aplicable, exigible y por vía de un diseño de gobernanza global. Esto que parece una misión gigantesca y que de pronto podría percibirse como que rebasa nuestra capacidad y que excede nuestros márgenes de acción, es desde mi punto de vista, sin embargo, factible. El haber tenido la oportunidad de estar aquí en los años 2006 y luego 2008, de ausentarme más allá de mi voluntad y retornar en esta fecha, me ha dado el privilegio de ver la evolución. Una cosa es cuando esto comienza como un sueño, como un hermoso sueño de un individuo que algunos pudieran considerar es un poco excéntrico, otros pudieran suponer quizás no está completo desde el punto de vista de sus capacidades o facultades mentales, pero que sin lugar a duda ha demostrado tener la claridad suficiente, la fuerza de voluntad suficiente, la consistencia y perseverancia indispensable para que un proyecto de semejante magnitud haya logrado sobrevivir 15 convenciones, 15 conferencias mundiales, pero más aún haya logrado evolucionar como lo ha hecho al punto de que hoy tenemos la participación ya no solo de jueces, sino de altos personajes del mundo de la política a nivel internacional. Esto, desde mi perspectiva, pone de manifiesto que realmente empezamos a migrar hacia la comprensión de que la tarea que nos hemos propuesto implica necesariamente involucrar a nuevos jugadores en el equipo, porque la misión rebasará, como en efecto rebasará, nuestra capacidad de acción. No obstante, habiéndonos convocados y teniendo el compromiso de introducir los cambios, eso nos da la responsabilidad de diseñar las fórmulas o las respuestas que nosotros creamos resultarían adecuadas para convertir el sueño en realidad. Como creo que el tiempo se me agota, solamente concluyo diciendo, con la esperanza de que mis hermanos hispanoparlantes hayan logrado captar un poco de lo que expresé en lengua inglesa, solo concluyo diciendo lo siguiente. Hemos venido y seguimos viniendo, pero llegó el momento de que diseñemos la estrategia. El sueño es bueno, la voluntad existe, la determinación la tenemos, la visión es incuestionable, pero necesitamos diseñar la estrategia para que ese sueño se convierta en realidad. Lo podemos hacer por una razón muy simple: ya no nos queda tiempo. El mundo no tiene tiempo por delante para demorar en la aplicación de los correctivos que nos permitan asegurar que este globo, que es el único que tenemos y en el único en que sabemos que podemos vivir, siga siendo un lugar habitable y seguro para las generaciones futuras. Es nuestra misión, hagámoslo. Tenemos a nuestra disposición herramientas útiles, explotémoslas. Comprometámonos en serio, más allá de la visita anual a esta hermosa ciudad y de compartir con ese caballero que algunos creen que podría ser excéntrico, pero que cada año nos da lecciones y que debemos emular. Muchísimas gracias a todos y manos a la obra. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Honorable Justice Graciela Dixon. I was just mentioning that how much our children know about Justice Dixon and how much they practice in the various appeals that they practice about her famous saying, the great power which is in the pen of justice, of a judge, of a chief justice. Thank you very much for your presentation. You brought something which I think is already a belief of Gandhi, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi and Mrs. Bharati Gandhi, Dr. Bharati Gandhi, and that is the fact that to establish the World Parliament, to bring about the establishment of these international institutions for redefining a new global order in society is really something which is the work of a number of stakeholders. City Montessori School has taken it upon itself by virtue of the fact that it is a huge number, as you rightly mentioned, as well as the fact that this school believes so much that the other important player in this whole field of transformation are the individuals, releasing the power of the individual. City Montessori School does that very consciously, enabling its young youth, the young students, to go through a process of transformation and engage in acts of service for the upliftment of society, to really practice that principle of love that you so beautifully mentioned, that we need to look at nature and learn from nature. Thank you so much for your presentation. I would now like to request His Excellency, the Lema Motlanthe, who served as the President of the Republic of South Africa from 2008 to 2009. Sir, it is such an honor to have you again here with us at this International Chief Justices Conference, and I would like to request you to address this gathering.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director of the Program, Dr. Jagdish Gandhi and the family, and the entire extended family of City Montessori School, Honorable Chief Justices and Judges, Your Excellencies, former heads of states and governments, distinguished guests, teachers and learners of CMS, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, a big thank you for the kind invitation and opportunity to be part of the 16th International Conference of Chief Justices of the World in this beautiful city of Lucknow. Right now, and now more than ever, the whole world is hankering for peace. Unfortunately, the call for peace is increasingly punctuated by violence and wars. The world seems to be sinking deeper and deeper into the raging fires of violence and wars, which in turn serve to accentuate human suffering, migration, and deprivation, as well as want. As we speak, parts of the continent of Africa are theaters of war and conflicts, afflicting 27 countries, followed by Asia with 16 countries, Europe with 9 countries, the Middle East with 8 countries, and the Americas with 5 countries. This comes to 65 countries in all, which represents a stupendous number of humanity. The implications of these war-ravaged countries include internal dislocations of people, mounting deaths, and increasing refugee crisis. Humanity cannot go on in this self-destructive fashion without finally wiping itself out. Yet we have the global body of governance, the United Nations, which was created exactly for the purposes of maintaining peace among nations. In the face of this continued human conflict, the question is, why is the United Nations not stepping up to the plate? When the United Nations organization was created, following the end of the Second World War, many people sighed with relief at the prospect of finally having a global body with the powers to enforce agreed interstate regulations and keep peace among nations. The United Nations provided hope that at last humanity had come to its senses, embracing a form of global governance that would create peace and security, as well as guarantee the future of humanity. Alas, as it turned out, this was not to be. as the raging fires of wars across the face of the earth continue to literally ravage many parts of the world with commensurate loss in human life and limb, the question arises again, as it did before the Second World War: will the world ever know peace? And if so, under what conditions? Indeed, for peace to hold, UN, continental bodies of governance, and all 193 sovereign states have to address themselves to the 4 key questions raised in this conference as a matter of agency. The United Nations has to promote peace and security. It has to maintain just and honorable relations between nations. It has to foster respect for international law and encourage settlement of international disputes through arbitration. I would contend that the most important precondition for peace in our world is through a more democratic and representative United Nations. This would mean a broadly representative UN Security Council, which enables large parts of humanity to have a say in global affairs. Peace is neither a variable nor an imponderable. To achieve peace in the world, we have to work for it, to lay the ground for it, through minimizing unnecessary pain, and with that, making life worth living for all of humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, it would be amiss of me if I did not reflect on our youth and students among us, who, as the future of our world, are the ones that can guarantee peace, because it is the prerogative of youth to be radical, to question the underpinnings of all institutions, and to act in order to bring about the world they envisage. Yet it is notable that for these students and youth to grow up peace-loving, they have to imbibe the philosophy of tolerance now during their formative years. Central to the building of peace is the valorizing of tolerance, for more often than not, it is the lack of tolerance that occasions religious, political, and other forms of conflict. Human-centered values that revolve around our indissoluble humanity in whatever cultural variety should constitute the bedrock of our education system. After all, what good is an educational system that produces staggering wealth but either consciously minimizes or plainly ignores human value? In this regard, I'm quite confident that the City Montessori School and many other education institutions across the world, as primary agents of socialization, will strive to inculcate the abiding values of tolerance among our children, moving from the basis that we all share indivisible humanity, and that the denial of part of our humanity is the denial of our entire humanity. As I conclude, I would like to leave the students with the following words from James Baldwin's book called The Fire Next Time. And I quote, "It demands great spiritual resilience not to hate the hater whose foot is on your neck, an even greater miracle of perception and charity not to teach your child to hate," unquote. With these few words, I thank you, confident that this conference, like the ones before, will help contribute to the betterment of human condition. And remembering that the past we inherit, but the future we create. And if you treat past, present, future as one word, then you will understand that all these three parts, past, present, future, give us context to our action. There will always be a shadow of the past in the present, and there will always be birthmarks of the present in the future. And I thank you for your attention.
Are geared consciously towards bringing that about. Thank you indeed. You spoke about the need for children in war-torn, in countries where there is terrorism, to be taught to love and not to hate, to walk a path of constructive resilience. Thank you very much for those thoughts. The fact that there are 65 instances of conflict today in the world, and no one continent is an exception, was again another call to the reality today. Thank you very much for that. So, friends, it's now time to invite our dearly loved Mr. Gupta to come and give us the vote of thanks. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. It's now time to call Mr. Ravi Prakash Gupta to please come address us and give us the vote of thanks. Please join me in welcoming. After the vote of thanks, then we will go for lunch, and we should be back in 40 minutes. And with apologies to the FOPAL friends, we have rescheduled their program in the evening.
Dear children, your lovely parents, brilliant teachers, guiding principals, and the workers, those who have all made efforts to organize this function successful. I salute all of you for having the patience to hear the speeches of dignitaries coming from all over the world. You are fortunate to be here, admitted in the City Montessori School, to have the privilege of hearing all these dignitaries, meeting them, seeing them alive here. But you should not forget, I will not take much time, you should not forget millions of children, those who are deprived of education in the refugee camps in Jordan, Lebanon, Libya, and Turkey. Those are the children. They are dependent for their survival upon the assistance given by the United Nations. They have no means to education. Our heart goes to those children. And we cannot forget the contribution which has been given by the Malala Yousafzai, a lady who had challenged the culture of the violence in the Swat Valley by a simple one book. She has silenced the entire culture of the violence in the Swat Valley, the culture of the guns, by replying it by a book. She is the lady after getting the Nobel Peace Prize, donated the entire money to the cause of the children of these refugees. And she has opened a school in the refugee camp and running that school there. My salute is to Malala Yousafzai. My salute to all those children, those who are being educated by the Malala Yousafzai. On the other hand, I feel painful to see the judgment of the Supreme Court of the United States in the state of Columbia versus Heller, where the Honorable Bench, by 5-4, has struck down a law whereby keeping of the arms was regulated, allowing everybody to keep the arms, to kill everybody. And now and then we see in the United States of America, somebody is just keeping the arm, using it, and killing the small children. And when the state has come to regulate those arms, that law has been struck down by the Supreme Court of United States. The world judiciary has to ponder over it and to see to it that the judgment delivered on the basis of the second constitutional amendment of America in the 16th century, the amendment which was passed in the 16th century in 1696, on the basis of that right, the United States of America, the Supreme Court of the United States of America, has struck down this particular law. How you can base? I'm amazed. Today, in the 21st century, relying upon an amendment of the 16th century, if you are relying upon the culture of the 16th century, then how you can unjustify the ISIS militants if they are relying on the culture of the 6th century? The world judiciary has to think over it, that the time is passing, we are becoming more and more civilized, and we have to amend accordingly. The laws which are passed centuries ago cannot be implemented in a present context. And with these words, we thanks everybody, especially we thanks the former heads of South Africa, Croatia, Sri Lanka, the former Chief Justices, and again I thanks all the